Hey there non-existent fanbase, I hope you enjoyed this Reddit video of r/rpg horror stories. Sexist player won't let me play a fighter. So this happened a few years ago. I joined a D&D 5e group that I found from a flyer on my college campus. There were 3 players, Creepy Dude, or CD, the DM's husband, H, and me. Eventually 2 other guys join us, but that's not important for a while. So we're deciding what characters and what class we're going to play. CD wants to be a bard, H wants to be a warlock, and I want to play a mystic, an unofficial playtest class from Unearthed Arcana. All spellcasters. Not a great team composition, so I bring this up and volunteer myself to play a fighter. CD will not have it. He says we don't need a fighter because he's a bard of valor and can be a fighter too. I tried telling him we should still have a dedicated fighter, but he insists that I not be a fighter. I don't know much about bards, so I give up the argument and keep creating my mystic. A few hours later, CD says in the group chat that he's going to play a fighter. I'm pissed, but I have started fights in my previous RPG groups before and didn't want to start a fight before I even met these guys, so I let it go. That was a mistake. Day of the game, I ask the group for a ride. CD offers me a ride. He asks if I want to get food with him before the game, and I say yes because I haven't eaten yet. We go to a fast food place and sit down inside because he says he needs to set up his character. Honestly, it felt like a date. He didn't work on his character, although he brought the books in, and kept asking me stuff about my personal life, what I like to do, what music I liked. I tried to be friendly, but it was weird. Maybe he was just being friendly, but I didn't like it. We go to leave and it's raining. He insists on walking me to his car under his umbrella even though his car's 10 feet away. I tell him no, it's only a short walk, but he persists and I give in. We get to the game, we introduce our characters. H is playing a funny but extremely dumb and impulsive human warlock, CD is playing a dragonborn fighter, and I'm an Aasimar mystic. I describe my character as incredibly beautiful and otherworldly, but I wasn't able to find a suitable name for her in time. So I decide she doesn't have an actual name, and let the party name her. CD pipes up and decides to call her Angel, for Aasimar. Very creative. I would also like to add that my character did not look like a typical angel. Her patron was a coatl, whatever, and had rainbow feathers growing from her back and hair and patches of iridescent scales. Everyone except CD seems a little uncomfortable by this name, but I just point out that I asked the party to name her, so if that's what you want to call her, then that's what she'll go by. Later that night, I make an excuse to stay behind and chat with DM and H. They can both immediately tell that CD makes me uncomfortable. DM says she'll keep an eye out for him, and they make sure he won't give me rides anymore. As the game goes on for weeks, CD's character decides to take up the protector role for my character, always watching her and by her side, making sure she isn't harmed. At any moment I thought he would tell my character, "Don't worry, mlady, I'll protect you." This relationship and behaviour is fine if the players agree upon it beforehand or it makes sense in the backstory. My character can blow up guys' heads with a look, she doesn't need protecting. If anyone needs protecting, it's our warlock who constantly gets himself into trouble. Outside of game, I'm extremely annoyed and regretting my character choice, but the character I'm playing is very passive and sweet, so she won't speak up about it. But she is smart and is trying to find forbidden knowledge. One of the new guys who joined tried to give her a hairbrush he found, and she gave it to the warlock since he has much more use of it than her, also as a fuck you to gender stereotypes. The warlock was very happy with it. Then, total party kill. I won't go too deep into it, but we transitioned into Curse of Strahd for Halloween, and everyone except the new guy who played a halfling rogue died because of the warlock's impulsiveness. I was relieved because I could finally make a different character and not have to take CD's patronizing shit anymore. She was a Vistani. I had watched certain assholes play Curse of Strahd online, so with the DM's permission I made a character that had more knowledge than most of the world. Trickster Cleric Ward. Vistanis are like gypsies, so... She was a butch lesbian who was headstrong and didn't take shit. She was a character I had the most fun playing as until I had to leave school for medical reasons. Before we played with our new character, I confronted CD through private messages saying how the way he treated me was patronizing and that I found out Valor Bars supports a fighter, so using that as an excuse to not let me be a fighter so he can be a fighter made it seem like he didn't want me to be a fighter because I'm a girl. He didn't respond, but left me alone at the table. I talked with DM and H later, and they talked about how they noticed CD treated me, the only girl at the table besides DM, completely different from anyone else, and how he was more protective of me despite the fact that I didn't need it, and how H's character needed it more than me. I feel like I'm going to get a lot of criticism and people defending CD, perhaps the intentions of his actions were innocent. I truly didn't feel that way, and neither did some other people at the table. Also, I found out during another game he was in, he kicked a person's dog! He's an asshole. Edit, I found old messages. He asked me to go get food, not the other way around. Edit 2, I know I should have spoken up sooner, I learned my lesson after my experience with this guy. Werewolf Lapa tried to punch me IRL. My friends and I joined a LARP in college. It was a homebrew game sorta like Assassin where the game was constantly ongoing, and if players on opposing factions saw each other on campus, we could initiate combat. The idea was really fun, and for a while it was a super cool game. Of course, because it was homebrew, the stats were all unbalanced and mechanics could be weird. The theme was urban, supernatural, fantasy war. Because the GM's girlfriend wanted to play as a werewolf, and he went out of his way to make werewolves the most psychopathically unstoppable creatures on Earth, with the caveat that their power waxed and waned with the moon, basically Werewolf Girl, who was IRL a massive bitch, was functionally immortal and lethal without exception under a full moon. She was also a major munchkin and would go out of her way to kill other characters in unfair ways. Me and my two friends were pretty good at avoiding her though. I was a fire elemental, one friend was a dryad, and one was a witch. Since we were all factionless minor magic users, we were too weak for the werewolf to bother with, and all of us had ridiculous restrictions on our powers. I couldn't use magic if it was raining, if I was wet, if it was cold, etc. However, because of the brokenness of the game, when the three of us worked together, we could get our powers to complement each other, and become an actually formidable force as long as we were together. So the night of the full moon has come and half the original players have left because of the werewolf's player killing. The rest of us meet for a night of roleplaying and warfare. The only one in full costume is the werewolf, who has covered herself in full body makeup, fake blood, fangs, yellow contact lenses, patchy fur, etc. She's planning a massive character wipeout. The rest of us are just there for fun, but during the first 10 minutes she's racked up a high body count and people are already leaving. She comes after me and my friends, snarling and growling IRL in an alarming way, and we start up our little teamwork routine. I can cast a ring of fire that blocks all magic from entering for one round. However, because we as a team leveled up a few times, I've bought this spell over and over again so I could basically cast it thousands of times as long as I had mana, which the witch had the power to gift me from her own health, which the witch automatically regenerated in the close presence of trees, which the dryad technically counted as. So as long as we were all together, we were completely immune to basically all damage. The Ring of Fire also prevented magic from leaving, but that didn't stop us because the witch put her points into developing activated magic items that only became magical under certain circumstances. What I'm saying is that she could throw glass jars outside of the ring, and when they shattered they became swarms of vicious magic bees. The Dryad also made an attack move every round. Since the cacti she could spawn were not magic cacti, she could shoot spikes through the barrier. Our magic was not strong and it was pretty stupid, but we were doing ridiculous amounts of damage to Werewolf Girl just because she would not stop attacking us. She was getting more and more pissed off as this fight wore on, and we just kept doing the same stupid thing every round. She finally realised that the anti-magic wall was literally never coming down, and we were all untouchable, and she started screaming at her boyfriend that this was unfair. It probably didn't help that my friends and I were looking pretty smug, and this chick had some major insecurities around other women. She was the type to surround herself with dudes crushing on her so she could feel like she was in control, and was just intentionally cruel to other girls. Her GM boyfriend came over and tried to explain that we were within the rules, but that yeah, he should probably change some things about the system. She told him to change it so that I couldn't cast this spell, and I was like, but I only have 2 spells, and the GM was like, yeah, I can't take away her only spell, and I was like, plus if I drop the ring, Werewolf Girl would insta-kill us, which isn't fair either, and the GM was like, well it is fair because the full moon, and she's been waiting for this, wah 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 wah. So we argued about it for a while, and the GM finally agrees to ban me from casting the same spell again, so I asked, so then, can I put all those points into powering up other spells? And he was like, yeah. So I wrote down my new stats and I hand them to him. I pass my turn, my Ring of Fire fizzles out, the werewolf has a moment of smugness. The Dryad creates a shield for herself and the witch, similar to the ring. I'm conspicuously outside of it, which the werewolf should have sensed was bait, but she went for the kill anyway. Much like the witch's activated spells, the spell was automatically cast as soon as I dropped past 1 HP. The spell is called Napalm Bomb. It uses up the caster's elemental core, destroying the elemental in the process, and is basically an insta-kill for whoever kills me, werewolves included. The werewolf died instantly, then she physically tried to punch me in the face. I had forgotten that I existed IRL for a second there of fiery glory. I saw her clench her fist, raise it, and send it flying at me in a millisecond, and my brain was like, oh shit, she's actually gonna punch me in my real fucking face. I also remembered in that instant that she'd gotten in trouble for physically assaulting people in the past, and that's why she wasn't allowed in our normal college RPG club anymore, because she was legit nuts. I also remembered that she took kickboxing. Luckily, her GM boyfriend was a huge guy who got in between us and physically held her back. I just stood there dumbfounded as this chick in full werewolf cosplay screamed at me while her boyfriend restrained her and tried to drag her somewhere quiet to calm her down. We did not continue the session. After Werewolf Girl quit, the game fizzled out pretty fast despite the GM's attempts to fix things, same thing that happened to their relationship eventually. I went on to run LARP at that college and it was better. Last I heard of Werewolf Girl, she was in trouble with the college for publicly screaming racial slurs and attacking some other student. I sorta wish she'd actually hit me. She probably would have broke my nose and I could have sued her, paid for tuition, and punched by a chick in full werewolf cosplay is a cool court case to bring before a judge. If you kill my character, I'm leaving. Background, I DM a game that had 8 players. I know now that having so many players was a mistake, but it was my first group DMing and I didn't realise how bad it could be. Most of the players are fine, they are engaged and have fun with it, even if they're a bit loud at times. I know I'm not perfect as a DM, but I try to do the best I can to make sure the session's fun for the players and myself. One player is awful. Each issue on its own wouldn't be that bad, but combined they cause my personal DM hell. 1. She was a new player when the campaign started and still hasn't learned a single thing about her character's abilities, so each round in combat people have to explain how her different abilities work. 2. She was ridiculously overprotective of her animal companion to the point where she wouldn't let it do anything. There's a difference between good RP and her yelling at me anytime an attack hit the dang thing. Every other party member individually told me that they wanted me to kill her animal companion because it was so useless and they hated it / her character. I personally, as one idea, I hate animal companions. I hate people when they have animal companions. It's just, oh my god, the worst thing, because they attract, that animal companion ranger attracts the worst fucking players, I swear to god. 3. She whined and sulked any time her character was hit. During the last session of our game, they were first fighting a dragon, the players chose to do it, and then they were fighting a village full of lizard folk, players also chose to do it. They were going to be difficult fights, and they all knew this going in. She told me beforehand that if I killed her character, she would walk out and leave. Everyone else knows I would never intentionally target a character. If the monsters have intelligence, they'll attack whoever they want dead strategically. If a monster doesn't have intelligence, they'll attack whoever is closest and doing damage or looks easier to kill. During one of the fights, her character was almost knocked unconscious by one of the lizard folk, high-level evil fighter leading the village. 4 attacks are a bitch if you're the only one in range and intentionally provoked the big bad evil guy. She was close to tears and actually screamed at me to remind me about not killing her character. One of the other players told her to stop whining because it's just a game. Another backed me up and said if she hadn't made a stupid choice, rushing up to the big bad evil guy and shooting at him, this wouldn't have happened. 4. She whines about not doing as much damage / killing as many things as the rest of the party. When she built her character, I told her rangers won't be the biggest damage dealers. I also let her use the Unearthed Arcana ranger build, so it sucks much less than the rules as written Beastmaster Ranger. I told her multiple times that if she wanted to change something about her character, she could. It's a homebrew game. The purpose is primarily enjoyment and telling a story, so I wanted the players to have the option to change things if they didn't like their characters. But a lot of her not doing damage goes back to point number 2. She refused to use one of her main special abilities, her animal companion. 5. She wouldn't pay attention. I get that some scenes don't involve your character if the party decided to go to 2 different places. I get that sometimes combat can be a slog, especially with 8 people, but I had a rule for how long they each get per turn to decide on something to do it so it stays moving. That doesn't mean that you get to be on your phone the whole game or having side conversations, so everything has to be re-explained to you. The last session she tried to pull out a card game and start playing during combat. My other players said my voice was scarily calm when I told her to put it away or she could leave. Luckily she's moving away soon and I never have to DM for her again. Otherwise I would have kicked her from the table after the last session. I tried talking to her about everything she did individually and told her how they affected the group. She just didn't care. TLDR, player sucks, but the witch is dead, figuratively, and no longer my problem.